All right, we are here. Class number 2, Amy Bruni. Hello, Amy.
Hi, Charlie.
Hi. People are filing in now. The chat is now open. We'd love to hear where you're from,
Gotta see the.
what you ate for breakfast or lunch. No, I would just love to hear if you've been to one of these before. If you haven't, we'd love to hear from you. We're gonna have a really fun class as usual with Amy and get into some fun stuff. If you have your meet and greet ticket, just remain right here, and we're gonna do it in the same session. Just remain here to the end.
Oh, there's.
Kansas. There we go. Kansas, and people are far. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Um, how's it going, Amy? What's going on?
Well, I'm dying.
Oh,
I'm very, very
like
sick.
great. This is very appropriate for the ghost hunting. Oh,
I know. I just wanted to get as close to the other side as possible.
that's
So,
perfect.
I'm actually, my friends, I will definitely sneeze and blow my nose throughout this entire thing. I'm a little foggy. I'm gonna
Yep.
power through it. I'm gonna make it
Yep.
happen. I'm in New Hampshire right now, hence the very rustic background. Um, but yeah, so
Awesome.
Charlotte and I do a spring Disney trip, and that is the one that gets me every year. That's
Every time.
it's
Yeah.
like my version of Concrete. I come back from that trip every year with something. Although this
Like
time
a
I think I caught it.
Mickey Zuma's Revenge. Like what are we talking about? Like a
Mickey Zuma's Revenge. It happened. It's very
yeah.
clever.
Okay. Well,
It's very clever.
that's why I'm here. We got a lot of people. So we're on class number 2. Class number 1 you can watch if you haven't already. You don't need to have seen that first one to do this one. But what are we doing today?
Well, today is really heavy on paranormal etiquette, which I think is kind of an overlooked component to investigating.
Yeah.
And so when we say that, it's not just etiquette as far as like ghosts, but also like handling locations in the living.
Right.
And then we're going to touch a little bit on equipment too and how to handle that, just because we don't have a full equipment class in this round, but I do want
Right.
to get into a little bit of that because I think that
Okay.
applies in some of this as well. So, and then I honestly, for anyone who's never been to these or people who've been here regularly, I will check your comments too. They really
Yeah.
help me if you ask questions in the middle of the class. Otherwise, I'll just drone on and on. So please feel free either in the
Yes.
chat or the Q&A to ask questions, and I will answer as best I can.
Yes. Please inflame Amy's ADHD for us so that she can go and this and that and this. And
How did you
so
know?
make
It's
sure you use the Q&A box and not the chat because the chat will be going and talking as we go.
yeah,
She definitely will stare at the comments in the chat if you do this. I know you now well enough. But
Charlie
I'm
called
just
me
saying,
out.
use the Q&A box so that we can keep track of them as well, and then we don't miss
Well,
anything. But yeah, if
sometimes
you have
I get
questions,
self-conscious. I feel like I'm just talking out like and I don't stop, and so I need to
right,
digress. So
right.
that's also why I have a glass of wine, even though I'm dying.
You're medicated. That's good.
I'm medicating.
Excellent.
I've
Great.
taken no medication. This is all I have. So,
Perfect. Well, I'm excited to get into it. These classes have been so fun, and yeah, it's again, yeah. If you have questions, use that Q&A box and chat away in the chat, and yeah, we can get into it.
all right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Hey, friends. I know I have a lot of you went to class one. And so some of this might be a little bit of a repeat from what we covered in class one. But like I said just now, I feel like the etiquette portion of paranormal investigation is probably something that is overlooked too often. But also, I think it's probably one of the best ways to actually get results and get answers. This applies in a few different ways. So like last class, we talked a lot about getting into locations and getting the investigation and you're ready to go and you've got your team together and you guys are going to investigate. But then now you're there and what do, right? So first of all, just I want to talk really briefly on how to make property owners or people who you're helping, like the living, who are associated with these locations, it's really important to make them feel comfortable with what you're doing. The reality is that we have, well, thanks to some some shows and YouTubers and whatnot, there is this kind of preconceived notion of what we do, right? And so, we want to be taken seriously. We want them to know that we're there to help. We want them to know we're not there to mock the situation or make fun of death and dying and really zoom in on the horrible things that happen, but that we truly want answers. And so it's kind of your place to make anyone that you're helping, be that a family, a business owner, a nonprofit, wherever you are, make them feel comfortable with what you're doing. Let them know that, like, more than anything, it's important that they feel good about what you're doing and that you're not going to take things to a level just to get answers or results, right? You're not going to be disrespectful. You're not going to antagonize, but that you're going to treat the dead just as well as you would treat the living right in front of you. And so I think that's a very important message to get across to places before you investigate. And that could be, that could be in a number of ways. I like to, like, before I go into a location, I love sending like an introductory, remember, I am sick. An introductory email.
Could you spell that for me for a second? Is it
I made up a word. It's really important.
Introductory. Okay, got it. I'm just making sure. Yeah.
Introductory, yes. An introductory email outlining like what your intentions are, what your steps are going to be. If they would like to be present for any of it, we talked about this a little bit in the last class, how sometimes it really helps an investigation if, sorry, I'm looking, see, I looked at the chat. But I think the medicine, one sip of medicine is not enough, Heather, but thank you. No, that is the lack of oxygen because I can't breathe. That is what is kicking in right now. But anyways, so you want them to know like what your steps are going to be, how you're going to handle it, and always give them the option to be there or to observe or to ask you questions. But I love to send this introductory email, just letting them know like what we're going to do, what steps we've taken, what we know already. And it just makes them feel more at ease, especially too, if you have investigated before and you have references from people that you have helped in the past or locations that are willing to give you a little like, not like a full-on reference, but just kind of a referral, just a couple sentences saying, Amy was here 6 months ago and she and her team were super respectful and we'd have them back anytime. That really goes a long way. And it shows like a level of professionalism and respect that I don't know that a lot of people offer, right? Let me see, Heather, Aileen or Eileen, yes, it is important being respectful to not make the activity worse. And that's very true too, because, and I'll touch on that too, but when you go into a location, obviously you want to be respectful to the living, but also when you're dealing with the spirits, they're used to people coming in and trying to talk to them depending on where you are. And they're going to set you apart. You have to think of ways to set yourself apart, but they're going to look at you and see if you're worth talking to. That's going to be the thing. Like, are you worth giving information to? And so that's why this does come into play. So that's a really good point. I know, like I said earlier, actually, let me go ahead. Sorry. I don't want to skip ahead. All right. The other thing, since we're talking about being there before, or getting in touch with them beforehand, we talked about sending an introductory email. I'm assuming you've met these people. It's always nice to conduct a site visit beforehand, and that can be either during the day, like before you're investigating, or maybe just a few days before, whatever, but just something so that you're not going in completely blind, that you've been in the space before, you're familiar with the people who are associated with it. You can kind of get the lay of the land. You can plan your attack, for lack of a better word. You can figure out like, where are you going to set up cameras? Where are you going to set up your equipment? How many team members do you need? And then that also just gets you kind of introduced to whoever might be there. A lot of times these places, like, you kind of go through a certain channel to get access, but then the person who might be on site during your investigation could just be like a completely different person you've never met before. So the more that you can familiarize yourself with these people and the space, and honestly being in there before any spirits will see you and be like, who are these new people? That will help as well. So That is very important. Okay, and someone's asking, Christina says, what are some questions that you can ask that are not going to disrespect the spirits? So that's a really good question. So once you get into the location and you're ready for your investigation, right? So first of all, we talked about this a little bit in class 1. You've gone through all of this, you've done your introductions, you've made everybody feel super safe and know that you're going to be respectful and you're ready to go in and investigate, right? Depending on where you are, it's very important that you are very conscious of the location, okay? And I will get to that question as I go down this little path here. But, remember, depending on where you are, you're in someone's house, you're in someone's business, you're in someone's nonprofit, be so careful, okay? I know I've told this story before, but many moons ago, I'll never forget, we were investigating on ghost hunters and we were investigating Betsy Ross's house, and it was just a big thing. Betsy Ross, she sewed the first flag of the United States, where she was sitting in a certain chair where she sewed the flag, blah, blah, blah. And there was this point in our investigation where Tango was setting up a camera, okay? And what we didn't realize was that Tango was standing on a chair to set up this camera. Tango was standing on Betsy Ross's chair where she sewed the American flag. I can see John. It was a very brief moment and everyone saw it and he got off very fast. But this was one of those moments, and we've all made mistakes like that. So it's very important when you go in to investigate that you're aware of what's around you, who belong, or what these artifacts are, what can you stand on or sit on, what's the historical context. And so obviously we're talking about etiquette and respect. That goes for the location as well. So it's easy, sometimes remember, you're gonna be in the dark in this place. You could, stumble over anything. So just be aware of your equipment if you're laying out wires and things. I always like to use, gaffer's tape to tape down wires. A, so you don't trip, but B, so you don't trip and break something, right? So be very respectful of the space as well. Or if you're in someone's home, it's important to be respectful of their locations. So Betsy, yeah, no, she won't forget. She followed Tango home. He's now haunted by the ghost of Betsy Ross. Anyways, but so those are just important things to remember. Obviously, we're so caught up in being respectful. She's gonna sew his mouth shut and stop. I need to put that away, or I'm gonna keep looking at it. Okay. Anyways. Okay, so we've got that out of the way. We're going to be respectful. We're not going to break anybody's things, but also I will say, and I've said this in the past for anybody who's been to these before, I'm not above, well, be careful when you look in people's drawers. Sometimes to figure out what's going on, you have to snoop a little bit. You should look in their medicine cabinets and whatnot, but be careful of the nightstands, speaking from experience. Anyways, so, that being said, but yes, no, you can be respectful, but also let them know that you're going to be looking for information and motivation. And sometimes that includes diving a little bit into the homeowners and business owners themselves. There's a very well-known mansion in New England that I won't investigate ever again, that denied knowing anything about the paranormal. They seemed very nice. Okay, I'm sorry. Is the chat included in the replay, Charlie? Because I feel it's important for this one.
People are lit up. You said something and now there's emojis and people are. You're not going to be more specific about what's in the nightstands, right? You just leave that there.
People can know.
Okay.
They'll figure it out. Anyway.
Okay. Thanks.
I figured it. I mean, I did because I opened the nightstand. Anyways. I digress. What was I just saying? I was going down something really important, but then people started putting eggplant emojis in the chat, and now I'm distracted. Sorry, I'm gonna snort because I'm filled with snot. And anyways,
They're helping you get back on track right now.
a place in New England.
Okay.
Thank you, my friends. Anyways, so there's a very well-known mansion in New England that had us go to investigate. And we went to investigate, and they claimed to not know anything about the paranormal, claimed not to know anything about taps or ghost hunters, that they just wanted answers, right? But I and Adam as well, we were in their office, and we opened up a drawer, not a nightstand, opened up a drawer and found flyers for their future ghost tours in their house that have been investigated by taps, and every DVD of every ghost hunter season there ever was. And so they clearly did know about us, and they were hoping that we would find the house to be haunted so they could run tours there and whatnot. And they didn't count on us opening the drawers and looking into things. And so, obviously there is a level of respect and integrity and, that you want to follow, but that also goes both ways. So it's okay to try to figure out, like, if someone's pulling your leg, because, they owe you as much as you owe them. And so that's when I'm not afraid to, like, look and see what they're reading, look around, poke around, see what's going on there. Okay. Now, let me go back, because someone had that really great question that had led me down a road, but then you guys started posting these eggplant emojis.
Okay. It was Christina. Christina was asking, are there questions that should not be asked? Like, should you not ask a ghost if they're pregnant, for example? Like, what kinds of things should you not ask them?
Thank you, my friend. Hi. You guys are fine. Anyone who's been to these knows that I usually keep it together pretty well, but I am, like I said, very sick, but I'm happy to do this. It's a lot of fun. It's distracting me from my illness. But okay, so now you're in the location. You've got everyone's permission. Everyone's happy. You feel like you're doing your due diligence and making the spirits feel comfortable with you as well, okay? As far as questions go, hopefully, we're going to get into this in the next class as far as drawing up history and digging up tidbits about what went on in a location, right? And so the way to talk to ghosts and talk to spirits is to think of how you would want to be spoken to in that situation. I think sometimes we have a very strong tendency, especially in a haunting, to really hone in on why we think a location is haunted. And we start just asking about that incessantly. And it's very easy to do. I'm guilty of it. But you also have to realize, like, A, this is what they've been asked a gajillion times. But also, B, is that what they really want to talk about? Is that comfortable? I live by the rule when I investigate that I'm never going to define someone by how they died. To me, how someone dies is such a small, minuscule part of who they are and who they were, right? A perfect example of this is the Villisca house in Villisca. That place is defined by the murders that happened there. When you have 6 people axed to death in one night, an unsolved murder, of course, that's what people look at in that house. But when I walk into that house, I don't let that infiltrate my brain. It's hard because it's children. But I try to really think about Christmases and birthdays and potlucks and sleepovers and like all of the happy moments, because I tend to think that the positive far outweighs the negative, and I don't want just a few hours of something terrible that happens to define the existence of this entire family. And I think that they respect that. And I know I would, and so that is, while I don't think it's necessarily a case where you don't want to ask about it at all, but I think sometimes it's important to focus on focus on your intention. Like, is your intention to prove the existence of ghosts? Or is your intention to kind of get their story and figure out what it is that they want or how it is that they lived? And so that will really motivate your questioning. It really does depend on why you're there. But I tend to try to focus on triggering information not negative though. I'll pull up newspapers from the time. I'll pull up songs from the time and play them. I'll think of like popular foods and recipes, things like that. Things that I can mention that they're going to be like, oh yeah, like what would you want to hear? Like if someone's coming up to you, you're sitting out in public somewhere and someone comes up and strikes up a conversation. What is it that you want to hear that's going to make you stop and look at them and start to talk back? Right. And so that's really what I try to focus on. I try to really steer clear of death and dying and awfulness, because I guarantee you, especially if it's a well investigated place, a million people have brought all that up before you. Now, the caveat to that is if you're trying to help someone solve something, if it's like an unsolved murder, or they have questions about that kind of thing. But you just have to be very, tread lightly and be very careful about that stuff. So, but yes, I tend to lean positive, and I think a lot of investigators or people out there tend to focus on the negative, and they're also looking for like kind of shock value and shock moments, and that's not what I'm in it for. And I think that's why you guys aren't in it for it either, because you would not be here.
I actually had a question. Can I down in front? I had a question.
Yes.
I know some technology and some techniques sort of rely on a binary of like a yes, no, and things like that to try to get a simple question answered. But is there also like a way in which to use sort of open-ended questions to open the floor up to more response, or more like a journalist would ask some more open-ended question to try to get it? Is there something to talk about or speak on, or is there a reason to connect in some way?
Yes. That actually kind of leads me down the path of like tools and equipment. And like, since we're not doing a whole class on that this round, anything that you want to bring in as far as investigating with equipment, it depends on like what, again, a lot of this like comes down to your motivation and what you're hoping to achieve. And so if you're looking for more information and stuff, you might want to gear more towards like EVP, a digital voice recorder, or like a spirit box. And so that leaves room for more open-ended questions that could even conceivably introduce new information to the case that you hadn't even thought of, and could take you down a research path, which we'll get into in the next class, that you could find all new things, right? The yes or no stuff is super helpful too, as long as you're really diligent about not overthinking it or being a victim of confirmation bias, so if you're in there and you're using a K2 or whatever, and you're like, or REM pods, or, you just have to make sure that you're actually asking control questions and whatnot. But the open-ended stuff, that's definitely digital voice recorders and spirit boxes, because that will give you you can sometimes get full sentences that will just actually like blow you away as far as information goes.
Wow.
So, but just talking about equipment quickly, since we're kind of on that, and I think that actually plays really well into like the respect side of investigating, is you kind of have to start to think like, what are you using that these spirits may or may not be familiar with? Like, what is the time period you think these folks are coming from? Like, to what end do you have to describe what it is that you're using, right? For all of us, because we've been watching Ghost Hunters since 2004, 20 years, that's crazy. We all know what a K2 is, but if you walk into someone's house who's never been investigated before, like, you have to explain what a K2 is and how it works. And so it's one of those things where you can't just like pull all this stuff out and be like, here's all this new stuff, go for it. It's explaining what it is and what your motivation is with these devices. And I say this in probably almost every class, but I try not to let equipment overtake me as a human. Like I don't want these spirits to look at me and define me by my equipment, which is why I will never wear a proton pack on an investigation. I want to look as normal and comfortable as possible. And so I want to be able to kind of quickly explain to them what my motivation is, what I'm using and why I'm using it, and how they can use it. But I don't want to look intimidating. I don't want to come in with a ton of stuff in my hands, and have them question what it all is. It's rather, taking things like talking, but taking things out slowly but surely, like explaining what each thing is, explaining how it can help them, explaining that it's all very safe. That is also really important as you're, kind of going through these communications. And as I've said many times before too, you don't want to get so caught up in your equipment that you're overlooking personal interactions or personal experiences, because those are just as powerful. And I preach this a lot, but the second you stop trying to prove the existence of ghosts and just really focus on gathering information and being a respectful and kind investigator, that's when you're going to get the most bang for your buck in investigation. Stop worrying about what people think about what you're doing and just focus on what you're doing and how you can help, the spirits in front of you or the families that you're trying to assist with. So very important stuff. Let me see. So then as far as conversations go, when you're investigating and you're in there, you've got your equipment, you're asking questions. We talked about this already a little bit, but just really think outside the box. It's very easy to get caught up in, what is your name? What year is it? How did you die? Think outside the box. Ask interesting, thought-provoking questions. Sometimes you have to go kind of easy so that they're comfortable with you. But then start like really kind of digging in a little bit deeper. And I think that they really do respect that. Like, think about what you would want to hear. What's your favorite sandwich is a great question, Charlie. And so did you ever play Mario Kart? You're a natural. What is your idea of the perfect date? Very good. I mean, you can flirt with the ghosts, I guess. I'm sure that is. Do you enjoy wine?
If you could haunt one place in Disneyland, where would you haunt?
I know, seriously.
The real questions.
Club 33, clearly.
I like 100% because no one can get in there. I like the idea also of the unexpected question, because again, if it's like a pattern or an energy, or we're getting the same thing over and over again, and it's sort of like you see people take a post an Instagram photo of the same location over and over again, and they're like, wow, look how beautiful this is, I'm going to take a photo, and everyone takes that same photo. It's still beautiful, but there's another way to look at it and then get more out of that moment, right?
Yes, exactly.
And yeah, do you think kindred spirits should come back? Stuff like that. Just the normal question.
Stuff like that. Just normal question.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched Ghost Hunters? So weird, fun fact, I've investigated many a case where the people who I'm trying to communicate with who have passed on watched my shows. So that's always very interesting. But it also makes my job a lot easier if they were fans. I know that is so bizarre, and that's not an option a lot of people have. But yeah, no, it is really like kind of playing up to just trying to make it interesting. And it's like being a teacher almost, you can teach the same things over and over again and use the book they give you to plan your lessons, but your kids are just going to zone out, right? And the other thing too is you want to remember that these folks are on your level. It's very easy for us to start talking to ghosts and spirits like they're 3 years old, They're on your level. You don't need to baby them. You don't need to be like, are you okay? You don't need to do that. Just talk to them like you would talk to anyone else. And I'm guilty of that too. I mean, obviously sometimes you think you might be communicating with someone who is the spirit of a child. That might make more sense, but like, you don't need to talk that way if you're investigating a penitentiary or anything. Like, don't talk in a condescending or patronizing way. Like, just talk to them like you would talk to anybody else. And that will take you very far. You don't have to yell. That's what Steve does that sometimes. He's like, hello, like he thinks I'm like, Steve, they're dead, not deaf. So we all do it, clearly. I'm guilty of that. And so that's just things to think about. Like, don't treat them like they're stupid. Don't think you can see what they're doing. Don't think you can see what they see. Don't think you know what they want. Don't think you can be like, go to the light, Carol Ann, and they're just gonna be like, oh, I didn't think of that. And like, don't think like that. Just think of like them being like you or me, but being in a different situation, and you trying to figure out, why they're there and what they need from us. And then also thinking about the people who you're trying to help who are living. So, okay. I want to take some questions. Oh, there's a Q&A box. Let me see.
Do you want me to read them to you, or so we
I'm
can?
gonna
There's a
pick.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, sorry, my brain is broken. Um, let's see. Yeah, so Brandon's asking about how to go about finding out the story of the spirits prop. That will be very covered in the next class, for sure. So yeah, that'll be covered there. Someone's asking for a first timer what are the absolute essentials you need. Honestly, just a level of curiosity and wanting to help, but also you don't need a ton. Like if you're investigating at night, I recommend a flashlight. I can go into an investigation with nothing but my phone. Like my phone is a source of research. I can start looking up information as I go. There is a recorder on here that I can record my voice memo function. There's a camera that I can record things, or I can take photos of an area so I can remember it for later. Like, it is absolutely okay to just walk into an investigation with a phone. You don't need all the bells and whistles. You really don't. Let's see. What is the best piece of equipment to verify a spirit in a home when it is suspected, but not, I'm going to guess, overtly? I can see where you're going with. Here's the thing. If you're not positive your house is haunted, like if you're not having things happen that are 100%, you're like, there is a ghost here, you don't need to investigate it. Let it be. It's one of those situations where it's like, unless it's something that's very obvious, and if you're asking questions as to whether it could be a ghost, just let it go. Because trust me, if it's someone who's trying to get in touch with you and trying to get answers and trying to like make contact, you are going to know. And then also once you start investigating, you don't open a portal or anything, but you do kind of put that intention out there that you're like, hey, I'm over here trying to talk to dead people. And sometimes people are like, oh, someone in that house wants to talk to me, I'll head on over. So just be aware. I would assume it is possible that spirits you are talking to from a different time period have views on women, people from other cultures, etc. Do you think that can affect an investigation, and how you would suggest addressing that? That's an excellent question. And absolutely, so you really do have to think of the time period that you're dealing with. And it's hard, it can be very difficult, because obviously we have really evolved as a culture and as humans to kind of become very different now than we were even just 200 years ago. But you also, like, depending on what level of answers you want, like, it's very easy to become a victim of presentism, where you're like applying our wonderful, values and whatnot of today to people who existed, many years ago. And so if you want answers and you start kind of telling them like, well, this is not how it is anymore, you're not going to get answers. It doesn't mean you have to be like pretend to subscribe to their belief system or anything, of course not. But it might be a situation where you just don't want to bring it up. You want to just be like, I'm going to avoid that subject in the interest of getting answers here. Unless they say something completely disrespectful, then by all means go for it. But it is important to remember that, like, not everyone, like, times have changed, and in many cases for the better. And so it is hard. And I've investigated a lot of kind of controversial spots where I'm like, oh my God, I'm talking to someone that I actually really just want to strangle them right now, but I need to get answers from them, so I can't bring up anything like. And so yeah, that's an excellent question. So let's see. Someone asked, when you first walk into a property, what is the first thing you say to address the spirits? I just introduce myself. It's as simple as that. As though I were walking into a party and I don't know anyone and I'm trying to make friends. I walk in, I smile, I say what my name is, I state like why I'm there or who invited me, And I try to talk in a respectful adult fashion and just, explain what I'm doing again, but not in like a patronizing manner, just in a very like, hey, this is what I'm doing. If you want to interact with me, great. I'm gonna be here for a little bit, so think about it if you want to. But this is what this does. This is what I'm doing now. This is some research I've done. If you want to look at the screen or here's some printouts I have, you want to see what I'm looking for, like that. That's usually what I do. So, someone said, I know you did this at Velisca, but would you ever try to antagonize a spirit again? It depends on the spirit. I mean, there's been plenty of cases where I've antagonized spirits, like if I think they were someone who murdered children, yes, I will antagonize them. Because like the theory behind, sorry guys that I'm all snotty, I'm like, hi. The theory behind Velisca is that it's haunted potentially by the murderer of that family, and that he enjoys that it keeps being relived over and over again. And so, yeah, when it's apropos, but I'm not going to just pull that out unless I'm absolutely positive, So, yeah. Let's see. What do you do? If you think the spirit is speaking a language you don't speak, I get a translator if it's possible, or we have Google Translate now, which that works really well. And there is this idea, and I don't know how much I subscribe to it, but there is this idea of universal consciousness where they're not necessarily hearing your language, but they're hearing your thoughts. I don't know how accurate that is. I do know that I have had many an EVP come back in other languages. I probably most famously, if you watch Kindred, there was a ghost that was Polish and was saying Polish words I did not understand. And I had one of our producers go to a local Polish restaurant and ask for someone to come help us. And the owner's wife came, and she was lovely. Her name was Margaret, and she helped translate. And then they brought us, is it pierogies the next day? So bonus, Okay, let's see. All right, I've got that. We got that one. Oh wait, over here. Afterlife famous, yes. The dead bell is great. Someone's talking about the dead bell. It's one of my favorite things. Someone's asking about thoughts on doing
You want
research.
to describe what a dead bell is for those who haven't seen it or heard it before?
For sure. Real quick, someone's asking about research prior to an investigation. That we will cover in the next class, 100%. The dead bell is made by Ghost Stop. If you guys are members of the Paranormal Circle, which is like my online paranormal community, we actually have a really great discount with Ghost Stop and Momentus. And it comes in handy when you want to buy things like the dead bell because it's like $200 or $300. But it's this bell that they use like EMF and touch to ring this bell. It's like a desk bell, like a ding, ding. And I have gotten some really incredible interaction with that. And you can set the sensitivity on it and everything. And I use it all the time. So highly recommend it. But it's a great like yes or no. You can be like ding once for yes, twice for no, that kind of thing. So, oh, I only saw your dead bell comment. So, let's see. Okay, let me go back to Q&A. I have time for a couple more questions. Charlie, do you have a question?
No, I'm just here for moral support.
I can see you start to appear. Oh, I wanted to show you guys I have new merch coming out. It's a sneak peek. It says to die for.
Woohoo.
Isn't that kind of cute? Anyways. But it's not released yet, so but I'll tell you.
Sneak peek.
Mm-hmm.
Product trap. Yeah, and again in class 1 we also talked a lot about like sort of the basics of the process and things like that. Have you ever seen an experience kind of go sideways because of a lack of etiquette and a lack of like not of the location or of the people involved or the ghosts involved?
Yeah, actually many times. I'm trying to think of like a specific moment that's a really good example, but I've definitely seen situations, especially in group investigations, where
Yeah.
you have like, you know, a few people trying it out, and you have a group of people who are like super respectful, and then you have one like dum dum who's like, you know, what was it like to have an axe in your back, you know, so you know, and you're like, and then suddenly no one's talking anymore, and everyone's looking at that person like, why, you know, why? Um, so yeah, and then I think sometimes there's locations that try to capitalize so much on their dark history that they offend the spirits there. Like a perfect example right now is the Lizzie Borden house. It used to be a
Yeah.
wonderful place and super respectful, and now they have bloody mannequins everywhere. Like, and you know, it's just like,
Yeah.
what are you hoping to achieve there, paranormally speaking? So, but yeah,
It's a bummer.
yeah. So yeah, I know it is gross. Um, yeah, I
Yep.
am very, thank you. I am very, I do try to be super down to earth. That is really important to me. So I do appreciate that. What else? I think I have time for one more question.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of questions too, just about like research and how that affects an investigation, which we're going to talk about in the next class.
The next one, which is my favorite class.
It's
So,
it was my like the last time you did that one was my favorite too. It's just because it's a combination of sort of being a nerd about history and also, you know, trying to sort of connect dots and things,
yeah,
and rather than confirm your bias, you're actually allowing for the reality of the situation to dictate more about what's happening, which is great.
exactly. It's my history is my jam. I love researching. It's my favorite thing. So yeah, that's my favorite class. And then
Okay.
yeah, someone was talking about the Bourne House. It was bought by that company, and they've also, I just want to say, like, if you're doing ghost tours in any town, make sure you're going for the local ghost tour company, because there is
Yeah.
this large company that's buying these places, and then also basically they send people to go on the tours of the local ghost tour companies, and they steal all of their information and start ghost tours. So just be very careful.
Yep. And
Yeah.
also Strange Escapes, which is Amy's
My
paranormal travel
travel
company.
business. Yes, we're about to announce a couple new events this week, so it's very exciting. Queen Mary and Gettysburg, which will be fun.
Sweet, sweet.
Yes.
How about, actually, this might be a good one to end the etiquette class on is
Oh yeah.
how do you calm down a spirit that you might have angered? Or, I mean, or for that matter, like, you know, the person who has that location, you know, how do we draw down when something's gone off the rails with etiquette or if someone's offended?
Well, you know, it's again, this is where you draw on human experience.
Yeah.
Basically, what you're asking me is how do you calm down a person that you have angered? It's the same exact thing. So
Okay.
it's how you would handle someone living in front of you, depending on what the subject matter was, depending on what happened. You're going to apply the exact same rules because they're like you and me. And so that's really what it boils down to. Like in any human interaction, if you offend someone and you know you did that and you own up to it, you kind of circle back and be like, you know what, that was inappropriate of me and I'm sorry, and like truly apologize. But that's, you just, instead of being like, how do I calm down a spirit I angered, it's how do I calm down anyone I angered? And that's really, once you humanize ghosts, it's almost, to me, it becomes so much easier to speak with them, because I think sometimes we think of them like they're some alien or something completely different from us, or like some creature or animal that like we can't, they're us. The second you're like, oh, what would I think? Or how would I handle this if this person was living right in front of me? It opens up this whole new world of interaction that actually makes it so much easier. So yeah, that is a good point to make kind of at the end here.
So if they're like me, do they hold grudges and are really petty about stuff, or like are they just above that?
Uh, I mean, yes, many spirits do hold grudges and they're
Okay.
petty, just like you, Charlie.
So I feel so much better now. That's
Oh,
exactly
are you
what I
still mad
needed to
I
hear.
didn't introduce or invite you to Disney World this last week?
That's right. That's right.
It's fine. But look, I came back with the crud, so.
It's true. Yeah, take that. Thanks. Eric said I'd make a great ghost. I don't know how to take that. Thank you, I think. I'd like to think so as well.
I know. I just want to thank you guys for being so patient. I truly am like, I am trying to put on a brave face here, but I am so sick.
She's so sick. I can see you declining slowly. You're like,
I'm
I have
trying
the
so
vapors. I'm
hard.
just gonna lay down.
I, so Thank
Uh,
you guys.
yeah,
Yeah. So
thanks everybody. And yeah, thanks for coming out. We're going to be moving on to our meet and greet session here in a minute. So just remain here if you have your meet and greet tickets. And just want to say thank you to everybody. And we're going to be ejecting you out of the vehicle at a fast speed here. But yeah, thanks Amy for yeah, walking us through how to be
not
better
be
humans
a-hole.
to the ghosts and things. Yeah,
Yeah.
because we can
The
barely do it to
session is
each other.
called
So
How to Not Be an A-hole to Ghosts.
exactly. Uh, yeah, I mean, yeah. So Eric, yeah, Eric, why don't you remain here and I'll email you and we can figure that out. Why don't you remain here for the meet and greet session? We can take care of it. Yeah, yeah, definitely drink wine and meds. By the way, that's a
Doesn't
great
it? I have
idea.
taken no meds. I was like, I gambled. I'm like, do I want wine or do I want medication? I want wine.
It's its own. I feel like you're going very like 1500s with your medicine right now. You're just like,
It's
you know what?
working. I
It
just taught
is
a
working.
whole class.
That's right. Take that, and not one falling off of subject and having to
No,
go back. Right.
never.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We're going to be moving on here now. Don't forget to sign up for class 3 if you haven't gotten it. That one is going to be the best one yet because the research stuff is so cool and such a really technical subject that's taught in a really entertaining way. And